from you're going to need to start giving us some answers. I need to start getting some answers, or I don't know if I can keep watching the show. I just don't know if I can do it. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've never seen the show Lost. So I'm not familiar with these producers. I don't know what the show Lost entails. All I know is that people were very frustrated with how long it took and the ending. This could have been a movie. At this point, from could have been a movie. It's taking way too long. We're introducing way too many questions and we're having far too little answers. And maybe it's just most frustrating because this episode was hyped up to be the episode where we finally get some answers. And I remember seeing somewhere on Reddit, someone posted a picture of a board. Where are they? And we were supposed to find that out this episode, and we got nothing. We didn't even get conclusion of Victor seeing his father. So this episode, it really just mostly frustrated me more than anything. It was a lot of belaboring the point. So without further ado, let's get into episode 4. Now, episode 3 ended with Tabitha in the ambulance and seeing a tree in the middle of the road. Now, we knew as viewers that she's screwed. At this moment, immediately, it was like, okay, she's back. The town, for some reason, has pulled her back in there. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is what is the town calling people there for? Because the only other example we've had is Muriel, Christy's partner, coming back into the town. So, and they knew each other. So as far as people coming into the town that know each other or have been there before, I mean, Tabitha is the first person to ever come back that's left. They definitely thought that she was dead. But Muriel came into the town and she knew Christy. So I feel like something strange is going on. And it could even just be they're bringing certain people into the town to try to break the curse. I don't know. Doesn't it also seem like there's been an increase of people showing up to the town too? I'm like, what's capacity for the town? Like how many people can actually realistically show up? So episode 4 starts with Tabitha in the back of the ambulance. And she gets out to go investigate the tree in the middle of the road. Now, she's already seen it from the back, but she gets out to go investigate, and she's already panicking. Now, at first, I'm like, maybe she's dreaming. Like, let's think optimistically here, even though I know she's not. You know, maybe it's a different tree. What are the odds? Could be a weird coincidence. No. The crows start squawking, and it's immediately then where I'm like, she's stuck. She's 100% stuck. Knew she was stuck, but she's stuck. And she tells the ambulance workers that their plan to go in the opposite direction just isn't going to work. And they don't listen to her. The entire theme of this is they don't listen to her. And this is why the episode is so frustrating. We can't even finish one scene before we jump to something else. So Tabitha is like, that's not going to work. And then we jump in the house with Ethan sitting at the table by himself. Now, this is the first time that somebody other than Jim, and I guess Donna, because she was next to Jim when he heard the voice back when he built the tower. Ethan is the only other person that's ever heard this phone ring or any outside contact that's been trying to be made with Jim. So he hears the phone ring and Ethan does what any little kid would do. And he just goes over there and answers. And on the first ring, I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. So he answers the phone. And of course the voice is like, it's Thomas. And basically tells Thomas that his mother is in an ambulance on her way there and she's alive but needs his help. Now, Jim comes into the room at a good time, I guess, and is asking Ethan, what are you doing? Who's on the phone? What are they saying? Because he knows that Thomas has tried to reach out to him once before. Now, is Thomas the little boy in white? Who is Thomas? We don't know. It wouldn't make sense for the little boy in white to be Thomas because Victor has seen him since he first got there, which is what we found out later on in this episode. But Jim snatches that phone away from Ethan. And Ethan makes no mention to Jim that the caller also said it's on the way here. Now, I guess that like I'm giving Ethan grace. He's a kid, but I'm like, oh my God, like this just adds to the layer of frustration. So he's on the phone and he tells Thomas, leave my children alone. Stop messing with them. And the person goes, well, they aren't your children anymore. And I mean, that's obviously not good. No idea what that means. Maybe that means the town owns them. Maybe that means that this dark force is in touch with them. Sorry for the hiccups now, because we saw that Julie had the white eyes. Ethan is now hearing the phone ring. So we don't really know. Jim is frustrated, okay? And he tries to rip the phone off the wall after this and disconnect it, presumably to get no more calls. He's like, I'm done with this. And he discovers that it's not even plugged in. And why would it be? Because remember, flashback to the hole in the basement, there was nothing connecting the wires in the house or to explain the electricity. And the list just goes on and on as to how things really work in this place. It's like, was there even the phone ringing, or is this a mental trick the same as the military guy, who I guess name is Randall, we find out this episode, when he sees the swarm of bugs come around him. So back at Colony House, the bus driver, whose name we're not spending enough time getting to know, it's making me very upset because she's one of the only few Black women on the show, if not the only one. But she comes in and asks Tilly if she really thinks it was a smart idea to read those tarot cards while they're in this space. And I mean, she's clearly not shocked that the crow busted in. She's like, listen, this place is dark. Don't invite anything else in here. And Tilly is all innocently like, ugh, ugh. And later on, she says something interesting that says that she is worried for Fatima, or that poor girl, in reference to Fatima. And I wonder if she went through Fatima's reading after that crow busted in and if she has any idea what's going to happen. I think yes. I think that's going to be a very important plot point. So Victor, oh, yes. So Muriel came over because she's like, okay, this crow busted in. Fatima was scared. She's pregnant. She checks in on her. And I'm glad that we're at least not keeping this a secret. The show is filled with a lot of frustrations and a lot of secrets that people keep to themselves, and it would be beneficial for them to really tell each other. So she tells her about the encounter with the bird, and Muriel's like, listen, your color looks much better. Little does she know, Fatima's color looks much better because she's eating rotted carrots. And then later on, nasty bullet hole blood. Okay. This episode is so confusing and concerning. Simultaneously, Victor goes to Sarah's house because if you remember in the prior episode, he showed up there with this raggedy suitcase and he said that he needed to build a fort and tell a story. So they are building this fort in the basement, and he recalls that him and his sister used to play in this house before she died. And it's like, okay, so Victor is slowly getting memories back that have to do with what happened before his sister and his mom died in this town. So Victor's basically like, listen, my mom and sister died the same as Nathan, except I didn't unalive them myself. And he humbles Sarah in such funny ways during this encounter. I'll bring up the second quote in a second. But Victor's easily probably my favorite character. Easily. Victor says they need to go in the basement for the secrets because upstairs is for daytime stories. And he wants to remember how everyone died, because he's blocked it all out. So he's trying to finally help figure out what's going on in this town. He's decided it's time to open up these memories and figure it out. He also just remembered that he had a sister because this was trauma blocked out for a very long time. Back at the ambulance, Tabitha is begging them to go forward because they want to stop the ambulance, call for help, and circle back towards the tree. Now, she knows that their call for helps aren't going to work. She also knows that as they get closer to nightfall, this becomes more and more dangerous. She also knows where they are, okay? Ambulance people are like, what's happening? She knows exactly what's happening. Now, it's nighttime, okay? Now it's nighttime. The ambulance still hasn't shown up into town, so this can't be good for Tabitha or any situation that's going to unfold. Boyd and Randall, the military guy, are in the bus together. Mind you, they were supposed to switch. For whatever reason, Randall decides to stay in that bus and big mistake, big mistake. He ended up being helpful for once. Maybe this was the second time being helpful, but he stayed in that bus with Boyd to watch these things. And he tells Boyd basically, I decided to stay because I don't think that dying is the worst thing that can happen to you in this place. I think that what he means is being trapped here or potentially turning into one of those creatures. We aren't too sure what he was alluding to, but what we do know is there's no blinds on the bus. There's no real barricade with like wooden whatever they put over the windows. It's not boarded up. So he watches these creatures every single night. Now, I forgot that Jade, Kenny, and Christy were in the woods. So last episode, Christy fell right into a bear trap, hurt herself, and that's where they're staying for the evening. Now, in their mind, they have the talismans, so they're good. We don't know, though. Okay. We don't even really know what the talismans do. We know nothing. And that's what I mean about the frustrating questions. So Kenny tells Christy that he feels like everything that he was fighting for is gone and everything he wanted to go back to is gone as well, meaning if he were to go back for his family, they're gone. And I also feel like there was a little bit of an undertone of him and Christy aren't together either. So I feel like that was a little bit of a layer of Kenny's sadness. Now, simultaneously, Victor is remembering that when he woke up in the morning, when he was a little boy and his mom told him to stay hidden, excuse me, he saw bodies everywhere. And that morning, that's when he saw the little boy in white. And he basically says the little boy in white was his only friend during all of those years that he was alone. What's interesting is the little boy in white, from what we know, can't talk. So was he trying to help Victor leave? Presumably, the little boy in white pushed Tabitha out. We were at that time maybe wondering, is he good? Is he trying to help people leave? I cannot tell what's happening. I truly can't tell what's happening. And maybe even the little boy in white showing up in Camden, Maine. Before I thought it was a sign that she wasn't truly free, but I feel like it was more likely a sign that she was being called back to the town. The same way that Miranda was seeing those children and scared of them, she now has a reason, Tabitha, to go back to the town because she's supposed to do something. Probably bring Victor's dad there. Okay, so yes, Victor is remembering little boy in white, and we don't know if he was keeping him there or if he was helping him. Now, Victor was a little boy, so as far as doing a proper burial, that's not possible. So he describes remembering them just laying in the street. And I can't imagine how traumatizing that was for little Victor. Like the carnage was disgusting. And because he couldn't gather them and physically bury them, the little boy in white suggested to him, does he talk? How did he do this? We don't know. But somehow suggested that Victor gather the, what is it called? The valuables of these people and bury those instead, anything that was important to them. So Victor went around and, gathered things like watches off of people. And that's what he has in this suitcase. Now, a couple of questions pop into my mind at this time. Oops, I accidentally opened up a tab. Give me just a second. Okay, a couple questions pop into my mind. Are the people who were killed unrest because because they were never buried, their things were never buried, is the key to make sure that they get a proper burial? And then are the unrest people the ones who turned into these creatures? We still don't know that because if you remember when they caught one that was dead and opened it up, they saw what looked like dried up human remains or human organs. So, and then it's like, is Victor keeping everyone here? Like, has him not remembering all of this ultimately kept them there? There are so many questions that come through this episode. But Victor tells Sarah, listen, you're the scariest person here. So if I'm going to remember any of these things, I would rather you be here because you won't be scared. And that was the example of the other thing. Victor's hilarious. Sarah's like, But yeah, she is. So in the bus, Randall is telling Boyd that he watches these creatures and he knows their routine. And every night, the nurse stops at his bus for 10 minutes singing or standing there. There's a couple that sits on the park bench, and that all of them have routines that are usually happening right now, and they're not happening. And this was raising alarm bells to him. Now, good thing, because we know as viewers that that's probably because these creatures know that they have, let's see, it was the female ambulance worker, 2 men, and Tabitha. So 4 new potential townspeople that they're going to go mess with. So that's why they're not at the bus. They're elsewhere, and that raises alarm bells. Now, Ethan is looking outside, and Boyd and Randall, just as they're talking about where are the creatures? They're usually here by now. An ambulance shows up with its lights on, and they're like, what the F? Because also, it's not ideal to arrive to the town of From in the middle of the night. Now, Ethan looks outside and he's like, hey, that's exactly what the caller said was going to happen. There's the ambulance. And he runs outside. So Jim runs outside. Boyd, Randall, they're all outside at this point. And of course, they don't show us what happens because back to the ambulance, right? Back at the ambulance, these stupid idiot ambulance drivers see a woman lying down in the middle of the road that they think she's dead. And mind you, they don't know where they are. They're not really in a position to help anybody else, but they pull over anyways. And Tabitha tells them, stop, don't pull over, keep going to town. And they don't believe her. So they get out to go see it and ultimately handcuff Tabitha to restrain her from stopping them from checking on this woman. It's so frustrating. It's like, and also Tabitha, you should have clocked her upside the head. I know she has a gun, but like, I don't know what to tell you. So Tabitha gets handcuffed in there and everybody runs out and leaves her in the ambulance. Now, the thing on the ground starts moving as Tabitha knew it would. And as they get closer, first she's smiling, then she morphs into one of those creatures. And the guys are standing up above her and she slits the wrist or whatever. I'm sorry. She gets the throat of one of the other people and then guts the other person. And the lady cop is standing there like, oh my God, I should have believed her. So her mind can't process what's going on. So she uses her weapon and discharges a bunch of ammo, which does absolutely nothing to these creatures. And it's at this point that she realizes that she made a heinous mistake by not listening to Tabitha. But does she help Tabitha? Does she help Tabitha? No, she doesn't. Instead, what she does is she runs to save herself into town. So Jim and Boyd go outside at the sound of the gunfire. And when they show up, they're shocked to see that Tabitha is actually back there. I don't know if they're more shocked that she's back there or that Ethan was right. It's like, pay attention to Ethan sometimes. Like, I know he's not my favorite character, but pay attention to him. So they're shocked. And basically, once they realize that she's handcuffed, Boyd has Randall run to the bus because naturally Boyd doesn't have any handcuff keys on him and go get the toolkit to get Tabitha out. Now, I already knew immediately when this happened that someone's not coming back. Likely Randall, because he's been a side character for a very long time. And I was wondering when something was going to happen more to him than just him flying a drone. So he's running back to the bus, presumably to get a key to try to get Tabitha out of these handcuffs. And the cop lady is basically outside of Colony House, and she's shooting at all of the creatures around her. And, right on par with how things go. Okay. She just it's like, I think that they're making some shady comments about police, which was funny to me personally. So she misses. Okay. She misses and ends up wounding an innocent civilian. Sound familiar? Yes, it does. So she wounds an innocent civilian who happens to be Nikki, the bathroom, whatever, the bathroom commander, the bathroom bodyguard who's been arguing with Fatima through the window, and Nikki is not well. They decide to let the cop lady through the house anyways because she's a cop, whatever. They feel bad for her. She's outside by herself. And Tabitha walks in and she's like, I fucking told you. I told you. And all of that situation is 100% on all of these ambulance workers and specifically this lady. So I hope she feels awful. I hope she feels awful. Now, Boyd is trying to figure out what to do, and one of the creatures comes up to him while he's in the ambulance, and that creature has the keys to the ambulance, and they're like, you can have the keys, but we keep Randall. And it's like, ugh. And Boyd said, F you to the creature, snatches the keys away. And I really thought he was going to mow them down and like run the creatures over, but he didn't. He drives back into town. Now, there's a kid. I have no idea what his name is. I think his name is Alfred, but I really need to check. But he was one of the people who was on the bus going to visit his grandmother. He's talking to Tilly in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, he sees that same slender woman that he's been seeing right there in the kitchen. And he's like, am I awake? Am I dreaming? And we don't even really know which one it is. But what I did notice is that it looked like Tilly. Like, I don't know if I'm alone, but that creature sort of looks like Tilly. So I'm like, what is going on here? And like, do you see this lady? Like, snap out of it, look alive. Like, I don't know. Now, back at Ethan and Julie's house, he's back inside, and Ethan's asking Julie, what the heck is wrong with you? Because ever since your eyes went white, you're acting different. And Julie tries to lie, and she's like, no, like, I'm fine. And then she's like, no, I'm scared. I'm actually really scared. And she says she saw things she didn't understand and can't remember. I wrote that down just because I don't know if that's going to be important. I don't know if all of these people are seeing things that are going to happen in the future or what the importance of that is supposed to be. Gosh, I have like a scratch in my throat this morning. So if you see me coughing, I'm trying to mute the mic. Um, okay. So it's like, Victor, your father is in the back of the ambulance, okay? Because his dad is in the back of the ambulance. I forgot about that. Tabitha's handcuffed, but Henry is like incapacitated and lying down on this gurney. And Victor has no idea because he's in the fort in the basement. And this is what kills me with this show. It's just the frustrating. People are never in the right place at the right time. Never, never. So, and I want Victor to know that his father is there. Like, it's like, meet him now because he could literally be unalive by the time he gets to town in the back of this ambulance, the way that this is unfolding. Now, Jade, Christy, and Kenny, like I said, they're out at the huts this episode or near the lake. And Jade tells Christy and Kenny about the soldier that he saw that had like the bloody eye socket. And Christy's like, so how long have you been hallucinating? And Jade's like, well, pretty much since I got here. That's great. That's great. But it's like, you know what? Everybody in the town to some degree is seeing hallucinations. Randall, the military guy, is seeing hallucinations. The kid on the bus is seeing hallucinations. Boyd has been seeing hallucinations. Don't know what's going on with Fatima, but something's going on with her. Julie saw hallucinations. Jim gets phantom calls. So everybody is getting messed with in some capacity by this town. I do want to know what the story with the soldiers is, though. There has to be some sort of significance. They keep showing this. Is this a battleground? What is the story? So Kenny tells Jade, blah, 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 that his mother really liked Jade. And all of a sudden they hear thudding above them. And it's like, yeah, Something's definitely out there with you guys. Something's definitely out there. Is it the same creatures that's in town? Debatable, but something is out there. A lot of people are suspecting that Boyd's wife is going to be incorporated somehow in the plot. Whether she was one of the things that was inside of the spider, like he saw, whether she's one of the creatures, they feel like she's going to be in here somehow. And to be fair, I can honestly see that. Back in Sarah's basement, Victor is talking about remembering a puppet named Jasper. This thing is so scary. It's one of those ventriloquist dolls. And Jasper belonged to someone named Christopher, who was really funny and made everybody laugh until he didn't. And he says that that's it. That's the thing missing. It's Jasper. And I'm like, you keep that Chucky doll out of here. This is probably all happening because of Jasper. Like, to be honest, that's terrifying. So Boyd is speaking with Donna and really struggling with not being able to save Randall. Because if you remember, it was Keys and we keep Randall. And he was like, F you, but he went back into town because he wanted to save Tabitha. But he's struggling, feeling like he had to save one over the other. And he's like, why is she here? And it's sort of like he was saying, like it had to be Tabitha, right? Little does he know, Victor's father is in the back of that ambulance. Now, Tabitha is talking to Jim, and she's saying that she's absolutely, speaking of Victor's father, that she's absolutely positive that it's Victor's dad. And she was seeing his childhood home, learning about Miranda, all of these things. And she basically says, Miranda saw this place before she got here. And I think that I was called here as well. Luckily, for once in his life, Jim doesn't try to gaslight Tabitha or argue with her. Now, Nikki, whom was shot through the window by the cop lady, all of a sudden she spits up blood and dies in Colony House. And it's like, well, we knew that was coming. And also, not to be mean, not to be crass, but like Nikki's character, I really didn't like. Okay, like if they wanted that to be a powerful scene, I know nothing about Nikki other than she was always arguing over the bathroom. So Boyd says to the police officer, something scares you and you just start shooting, huh? And that's why I said I love the shade thrown at the police officers in this episode and police in general, because that was definitely written in there to like symbolize something. And I like that under the rug comment. But Donna comes charging in like a bat out of hell, and she grabs Boyd because, he's yelling at the police officer, which to be fair, she did just shake up everything and shoot a civilian. So like he kind of has a right, but Donna pulls Boyd into the living room to try to calm the situation down. And then she starts crying about how she's so scared and just wants the things to stop messing with them. Well, that's not happening, Donna, because a couple minutes later, when you look out the window, who do you see? Randall on the top of the bus. Okay. So that's not happening. Now, Victor, like I said, he remembers that Christopher used to be fun, make them all laugh with Jasper, this puppet, until he started seeing the symbol and then he changed. And all that we see of this is that Jasper is sitting on the couch across from presumably Christopher, and Jasper is talking on his own and they're arguing. Like I said, keep this Chucky doll out of here. Out of here. This is like very scary to me. I don't know why that doll was making people laugh, but anyways, Victor thinks that Jasper the doll can tell us as viewers and tell them in the town why things are happening. Back in Colony House, for whatever reason, there's 20 people living there at the minimum. Ellis and his pregnant wife end up being the person to carry Nikki's body. Why that makes sense, I don't know. But as they carry her up the stairs, Fatima tells Ellis, listen, I need a minute with Nikki. I was so mean to her and I just want to talk to her. And I'm like, she does not want a minute to talk with her. And also, is this not morbid? Also, aren't you not a little worried about anybody who dies waking up as these creatures or like something supernatural. But anyways, Ellis lets her and shuts the door and everything, really gives her privacy. I'm like, this is beyond. This is beyond me. So Fatima sits down with Nikki, and I knew she was going to do some weird shit immediately. Obviously, she's not going in there for anything else. Now, I'll be honest. I thought that she was going to eat the bandage and stop there. But of course, the writers love to torture us in many different capacities. So she doesn't. She like sticks her finger in there. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And at first, I thought the point was that her blood looked different. Potentially, she's changing into one of these creatures. But instead, Tabitha ends up eating it. Ah! Like, what? What? Not Tabitha, Fatima, this is bad. Okay? Quit acting like you're fine and tell somebody, hey, I think I've got like a Bella Swan situation. Anybody read Twilight like before we get stuck here? I don't know. It's so disgusting. And then that's how the episode ends. Like the episode ends, like I said, Donna and Boyd look outside. Fatima just had her Carrie situation in the room. She's being carnivorous now. Like before, she was eating arguably like rotted and spoiled turnips and cabbage and carrots. Now she's carnivorous. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why we're not getting answers. I would like answers. Episode ends with Randall choking up blood, still alive somehow on the bus. Just like, we were supposed to find out where they were this episode, and that's why it's so frustrating. And it's like, we still, going back to the unanswered questions. How do they have running water? Why did Christy's girlfriend Muriel come into town? Are all of the townspeople dead? Are the creatures people who are there too long and mutated? Is this an experiment? Is this a purgatory? Is this somebody's dream? What is Jade doing? He's becoming also enamored with the symbol, because apparently Christopher was normal with Jasper until that symbol became something he obsessed over. So are we getting a seed planted for Jade unraveling? Or was Sarah the person who unraveled already? Are the dreams that people had when their eyes were white visions of the future and what's to come? And if so, why can't they remember it? And it's like, and what's the story with the soldiers? What's the story? Does every family member there have roots to a battle, a certain war that happened? Are all of their family members ancestors that are there? Deeply unsettling. The writers, like I said, you are PMO, pissing me off. That's it. That's the end of season 3, episode 4. I'll be back this same time next week, Sunday, to recap season 3, episode 5, with fingers crossed that we will have a better episode. If you have not been tuning into my Love is Blind content, but you have been watching Love is Blind, please remember to go check out my videos. I've been recapping all of season 7. If you're not following my TikTok, make sure to go follow me on TikTok. I post all of my videos immediately after I watch things. And I've also just started Love is Blind Habibi on Netflix. And I'm also watching The Summit, a brand new show on HBO about Americans trying to climb a mountain in Switzerland. It's good. There's 2 episodes out, and I think people will enjoy it. I hope you have a fabulous Sunday or whatever day you're watching this. Like the video, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and tell me what unanswered questions are bothering you the most. I cannot be the only one. There's no way.